I love stories. I love listening to stories. I love telling stories. I love reading stories. I especially love watching stories. Anybody who knows me knows that I love visual storytelling. I love films and movies and TVs and TV shows, and I've definitely reached the age where I love documentaries. I think there's like a line of demarcation where you get to a certain age where you're just like, this documentary is great. Like all my older friends, they all tell me about documentaries I should watch, and I've kind of reached that age too. But I especially love going to the movies, and I've shared before how my wife, her name's Hansi, and she's over in the kids area this morning, but her and I are polar opposites. She doesn't really like movies at all, but she just goes with me because she wants to be with me. And so we watch movies very differently as a result. Like I'll watch in silence and kind of let the story unfold, like a normal person would watch a movie. But she likes to talk and ask questions and give commentary and interact with the characters as if they can hear her. And like a total and complete crazy person. That's the way I don't want to sit with her when we go to the movies. You came to be with me. I don't want to watch a movie with you because you won't be quiet. Like, stop asking me questions. They'll tell you what's going to happen if you just keep watching. They'll tell you. But I love all kinds of movies, but when it comes to the kinds of stories that we as human beings tell, like if you pay close enough attention, it seems like there are certain stories that if they weren't real, we'd almost have to invent them. I mean, if they had never happened, we'd have to create them and tell them, because there's something about certain kinds of stories that connect and resonates really deeply within us at a deep level. And one of those stories is the story about love. Whether it's Pride and Prejudice or The Notebook or Silver Linings Playbook or even Dune, which is such a great love story. But there's something about love stories that kind of pull us in, because all of us hope that we too might have our own love story. It's the promise that no matter how much pain or heartbreak that we've experienced, no matter how many relationships we've stepped into and out of, that your story isn't over until you've come to know love and that love has come to know you. But love's not the only story. There are other stories too. As profound and powerful as our search for love is, there's other stories about heroes and bravery, like Band of Brothers and Gladiator and Fury and Dune. Because we all want to believe that when the moment comes, we would step up to be that heroic person, right? That you might even surprise yourself and find a level of bravery and sacrifice inside of you that you only hope is there. See, there are certain stories, I think, that grab us, that call us out, that move us forward. They somehow seem to connect at the deepest parts of who we are. And they inspire us, and they challenge us, and they compel us. And almost in a strange way, they almost seem to heal us. Because when our hearts are broken, we remember that love is still possible. Because it's a story that's still being written, and it's written over and over and over again. Or when you shrink back in fear and you're not the person that you know you can be and the person that you want to be. That the stories of courage remind you that today may not have been your best day, but you can get up and you can move forward and you can become more tomorrow. Don't give up. And we're right in the middle of a story right here, right now, because Easter confronts us with the story of God intervening on behalf of humanity. I mean, who would ever think of a story or an idea like this, where all of reality would be inverted and the creator would become a creation? The one who is spirit would take on flesh and blood. The eternal one the infinite one would step into time and space. Who could imagine a story like that? One where God comes down and his mission isn't to punish us. It isn't to straighten us out. It's to love us. It's to show us how to live. And that God would ultimately sacrifice himself, giving his life for us. Who could imagine that the source of life itself would or even could die? And then after dying, he would do the unimaginable. He would do what had never been done before, and he would come back to life. It's all just so inconceivable. But what Jesus did was so profound. I mean, the story of Easter is so profound that we see the echo of his story, this idea of resurrection. It's all over our stories, where the hero dies, and spoiler alert, he comes back to life. And whether it's like Harry Potter or the Chronicles of Narnia or The Matrix or Dune, I'm telling you, it's a great movie. It's got it all. But when you read the Jesus story, whatever you believe about it all, if it's true, you'd have to admit that God is really the king of the plot twist. And he really does the plot twist better than anybody else has ever done it. Because even though it's something that Jesus talked about all the time, that he talked plainly about his death and especially his resurrection, that it was just something that nobody saw coming. They couldn't think of it. They couldn't imagine what it would look like, that it would unfold the way that it did. Not even those that are closest to him. They couldn't see it or believe it, even when it was happening and unfolding right in front of them. I mean, because it's one thing if it's a movie, right? I mean, that's obviously not real. That's not life. You just sort of suspend belief when you're watching that kind of story on a film. But this wasn't a Hollywood blockbuster. This was reality. And so you and I, we can kind of understand why for a lot of them it was just too much. It was too big of a leap for them to make. It was too good to be true. It was too unbelievable. And I wonder this morning for you, have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like that about Easter? Like, I don't know, man, it seems it's a cool story, but it just seems like it's too much. It's just too big of a leap to make. It's too unbelievable. I mean, it's fine, church is fine, whatever, but it's just, I don't know. I just can't imagine it. Because if you've ever thought that or felt that, I want you to know that you're not alone. In fact, you're exactly like all of Jesus' closest disciples and followers. None of them were standing at the tomb waiting, counting down for him to rise. Why? Because they didn't think they thought he was going to do what dead people do. Stay dead. See, the truth is, Easter is the ultimate story because it's about love. It's about bravery. It's about sacrifice. It's about resurrection. Not ours, but his. It's about life and death and God bringing life from death for us. It's the story we needed, but the story that we did not see coming. And so that's where I want to take you this morning, is to the story of two guys who were disciples and followers of Jesus, but his death and his resurrection was just too much for them, and they got overwhelmed and decided to kind of just walk away from it all. It's found in Luke chapter 24. Luke says this. He says, that same day, what day was it? It was Easter, it was Resurrection Day. So this is just a few hours after Jesus has raised from the dead. So this is Sunday morning. That same day, two of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking about everything that had happened. As they talked and discussed these things, Jesus himself suddenly came up and began walking with them. But God kept them from recognizing him. And he asked them, what are you discussing so intently as you walk along? As if he didn't know. And they stopped short, sadness written all over their faces. And then one of them, named Cleopas, he replied, you must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about all the things that have happened there the last few days. What things? Jesus asked. The things that happened to Jesus. I love how they start telling Jesus everything that happened to Jesus. The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth. They said he was a prophet who did powerful miracles, and he was a mighty teacher in the eyes of God and all the people. But our leading priests and other religious leaders, they handed him over to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. We had hoped that he was the Messiah, that he had come to rescue Israel. This all happened 3 days ago, and then Jesus began to take them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things concerning himself. And by this time they were nearing Emmaus and the end of their journey, as Jesus acted as if he was going to continue on, but they begged him, stay the night with us since it's getting late. And so he went home with them. And as they sat down to eat, Jesus took the bread and blessed it, and then he broke it and gave it to them. And suddenly their eyes were opened and they recognized him. And at that moment, he disappeared, and they said to each other, did not our hearts burn within us as he talked with us on the road and explained from the scriptures to us? And within that hour, they were on their way back to Jerusalem. What a great story. So if you're new to church, you're new to the scriptures, you're new to the story, maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, but these guys are Jewish. And so for them, Jerusalem was their holy city. It was the center of the universe as far as they're concerned. But they're leaving Jerusalem and they're headed to a tiny little village called Emmaus. And we don't get both of their names, we only get one of them. And his name is Cleopas, and for our purposes today, we're just gonna call him Cleo. And we're not even told who the other guy is, but they're walking along and they're devastated by what they saw done to Jesus. And so they decided to leave, and they fled the scene. They gave up and they went home. And whatever else Luke is telling us and wanting us to understand about these two guys, where he picks up the story, what he wants us to know is that they're going the wrong way. They're walking away from where everything is actually happening, where God is at work. See, Jerusalem was the place where heaven and earth collided. Jerusalem was where Jesus was arrested and was tried and was betrayed and died and crucified and was buried. Jerusalem is where Jesus said he would be coming back to life and then did. Jerusalem is where he would appear to all of his followers. But these guys, they're not there. They were there, but they're not there anymore. They waited for some reason. They knew that there was word that he might come back to life, but they didn't stick around to see. They're not where they're supposed to be. In fact, they're headed away from where Jesus was. But here's the amazing thing, that it's in them walking the wrong direction, headed away from everything that was taking place. It's actually on that journey where Jesus came and met them. And so I want you to know this morning that no matter what direction you're headed, that God actually wants to meet you there, that he will come alongside you, that he's wanting to walk with you and have a conversation with you. I may not know you or your story, but I do know that when it comes to God and faith, that you have chosen a path. And maybe you used to believe, but it kind of all fell apart when God didn't show up like you thought he would. Maybe you grew up in church or in a religious environment, and that's exactly why you kind of just pushed away from it all, because it was just like, ugh, I know what that's about. I don't know if I can believe it. I've actually found, I've been a pastor for over 30 years, and I've found that a lot of people who don't believe in God or that have anger against God or are resistant to God, it's because somewhere along the way they looked at people who believed in God, and they thought that they were looking at God. And so the image they have of God is actually the image of the people who say they believe in God. And sometimes that goes well, and sometimes it does not. Or maybe you're here and you don't believe, and it's none of that. Maybe for you, it's just like, well, it's just not a big deal. Like, I mean, there might be somebody or something out there, but who knows, like, who or what it is. But here's what I know. Wherever you're at, whatever path you're on, I know that for you, it makes sense. Whatever path you've chosen, you have good reasons. But what I love about this story is that God doesn't wait for you to come to believe in him, for him to come to be with you. In fact, he walks with you even when you're on the road away from him. These guys weren't just, they were just walking. They were just going home. They didn't invite Jesus. They didn't pray to Jesus. They didn't go to church. They didn't sing a hymn. They weren't reading the Bible. They didn't say a prayer, but Jesus still showed up with them. God followed them to the wrong place. Why? Because his grace is relentless in its pursuit of you. See, God will meet you on your detours and wrong directions and wrong paths, because he cares about the parts of your journey that you didn't ask for, that you didn't plan for, you didn't pack for. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, the way that Jesus joins them is really interesting to me. It's kind of funny. Like, I don't always know what it means, but Luke tells us that Jesus suddenly came up and began to walk with them. See, if you've been to church on Easter before, you've undoubtedly heard about the power of Jesus. I mean, we sang some songs about that this morning, and you should hear about that. I mean, he choked death out. I mean, that's strong. Like, death was like tapped out. He rolled the stone away from his own tomb. That's really strong. And so, yeah, we talk about the strength of Jesus. And if you've been to church on Easter, you may have heard something about the sovereignty of Jesus. There's like a $2 good, really good church word. The sovereignty of Jesus, or the supremacy of Jesus, meaning that nothing's above him. And that's true. I mean, if you predict your own death and resurrection, and then you go ahead and pull it off, that's kind of tough to beat. Right? That's pretty much the pinnacle. You're undefeatable. Nothing's above you. You are supreme. But you know what you never hear about? You never hear about how sneaky Jesus was. And maybe that's what we should have put on our Easter flyer. Easter at South Hills, sneaky Jesus. Because he was sneaky. Let me just show you just how sneaky Jesus was. That when he got up from the grave earlier that day, he didn't wait for it to be noon. He didn't wait for a crowd. He didn't wait for the sun. He got up while it was still dark. He left his tomb before the sun came up. He had to knock over a few Roman guards to get out, but after he knocked those guys over, he slipped out sneaky-like. He doesn't appear to a whole crowd at the beginning. He just starts appearing to a few people here and there. And none of them are the main disciples. In fact, he started with a few of the women who had been faithfully following him. Why? Because he's sneaky like that. They didn't have any power or influence or standing. I mean, in the verses that I read during the worship time, like Mary went and she went and told the disciples and they were just like, what? No, we don't believe you, right? Like they just didn't believe it because he was sneaky. That's why he wasn't born in a power capital like Rome or even in Jerusalem, but in a little backwoods town called Bethlehem, because he's sneaky. That he's not just a king, he's the king, but he came as a baby born to peasants because he's sneaky. In this story, he walks up to Cleo and he's like, hey, y'all, what's he talking about? And what's he doing? I mean, never mind that he's God. Never mind that he was just resurrected. He's just like what's good? What are you talking? What are we talking about? He's like creeping up on Cleo because he's sneaky. See, we think that if God is real and that if he shows up, it's always going to be spectacular and huge. But I think more often than not, he shows up in ordinary situations. That he will sneak his way into your ordinary moments. That you're just living, you're just walking, and he doesn't give you advance notice, and he won't ask you to sign a waiver, and he doesn't put a sign in the clouds. He's just sneaky. And the reality is, just because you can't see or feel him right away doesn't mean he's not with you, because he's sneaky. The cross was a symbol of a horrific, shameful brutality and violence and execution, because that's what crucifixion was. But Jesus took that cross and he turned it into a universal symbol of faith and hope and love that people wear all over the world today, because he's sneaky. And so here's what he does in your life and mine. He'll send beauty into your life, but it won't look like beauty at the beginning. He'll send blessing into your life, but it won't look like blessing. He'll send patience into your life, but he'll be dressed like a toddler or a teenager because he's sneaky. He'll send some of the best things about life and some of the best times of your life into your life dressed up like some of the hardest times of your life. And you won't see it while you're in it, but then you'll look back and realize that he hides blessings in giving rather than receiving, that he hides greatness in serving, that he hides life in dying to yourself. He hides his strength in our weakness. And so he's on the cross and he says, it is finished. And to them it sounded like it's over. We got him. He knows he's lost. He knows he's defeated. He's dead. But it was like he was speaking in code, because that's not what he meant at all. What he meant was mission accomplished, because he's sneaky. He came to bring us peace, but he snuck it in through chaos. He came to bring us victory, but he snuck it in through defeat. He came to bring us life, but he snuck it in through death. And so he sneaks out of the tomb, and he sneaks up on Cleo and Cleo's buddy. Don't get me wrong. I'm so grateful that Jesus is strong and powerful. I'm so grateful. It's amazing that he's sovereign, that he's above everything and everyone that I could ever face, that life could ever throw at me. He's all of that and more. But as incredible as all of that is, sometimes it's so big and so profound, I can't even wrap my head around it. I don't always understand what it actually means, especially in my real life. But I love this story because it's not just ideas or theories or theology. It's Jesus wrapping the extraordinary in a very ordinary moment. It's him wrapping the supernatural in the very natural. And so he takes the profound and he sneaks it into this personal moment with these two guys that nobody had ever heard of while they're walking to an insignificant little village that nobody had ever heard of. And I'm telling you, no matter who you are, no matter what you believe, that Jesus is sneaking up on you today. You may not be sure about him, but he is sure about you. That he came for you. He died for you. He loves you. And he's inviting you to come home to him today. By the way, it used to bother me in this story where it says that God was the one that kept them from recognizing Jesus, because it just felt like it confirmed our worst suspicions about God, that he's just toying with us, that it's all just a game to him. Our lives are just a game. But that's actually not what it's telling us at all. It's actually telling us something really incredibly beautiful about who God is, because it's telling us that God is not a one-size-fits-all God. See, for some of us in this room, Jesus shows up and he jolts us awake, because that's what it takes. It's what we need. And so we see him and we're overwhelmed by him and we respond to him right from the jump, right from the start. And there's many of us in this room that we have that story. But for others of us, he shows up and he takes us on a journey and he wakes us up slowly, patiently leading us step by step to himself, because he knows that's the only way that we could ever see him. And there's people in this room that's your story. He didn't jolt you awake. You woke up slowly as he led you to himself. And so Jesus joins Cleo and his friend on the road, and he asks them what they're talking about, not because he doesn't know, but because he wants them to know how much he loves them and cares about what they're thinking and what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, what they're walking through. And so he asks the question that stops them in their tracks. He gets to the heart of the matter, and Luke tells us that as soon as he says, "What are you guys talking about?" they literally stopped walking. Sadness written all over their faces. And then they begin to proceed to tell God all about how God had just been tortured and killed. And then there's this moment where it just comes spilling out of them. In verse 21, it says, "We had hoped that he was the Messiah and that he had come to rescue us." We had hoped. Had hoped, past tense. At one time we were hoping. Not anymore. Now it's gone. Now we're just coping in the aftermath. Now it's on to plan B. We thought that was it. Now we're not even sure what to do or where to go or what to believe in, so we're just going to go home. Now it seems like we're just kind of on our own, stuck trying to figure out life by ourselves, that maybe God isn't coming for us. But the beautiful truth of this story is those are the exact moments that God is nearest to us, is when we reach that point where we're just like, "God, I don't know what's real. I don't know what's true. I don't know if you're there, but I'm just stuck. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to feel. I don't know what to think. I don't know who to turn to. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix me." One of my favorite authors, his name's Philip Yancey, he wrote this. He said, "Human beings don't easily admit desperation, but when they do, heaven draws near." And so Jesus does something extraordinary. He starts at the beginning. And Luke says that he explains everything from the scriptures concerning himself. I hope that there's like video archive of this. Like whatever heaven's going to be like, I want to go to the video library. I want to select this because I want to see Jesus talk about himself walking through the scriptures. Jesus doesn't gloss over what they're feeling. He also doesn't try to explain everything that had just happened in the previous couple days. He doesn't try to make them feel better. He doesn't pat them on the head and say, "They're there." And see, that's the thing about Jesus and questions. He often doesn't answer the questions we want him to answer. And if I'm being honest, like that is really frustrating at times. But when you actually follow Jesus through the Gospels and you read through his life, he always answers the question we should have been asking. He always answers the questions we need him to answer. He always answers the questions behind the questions underneath the questions. And so he begins to explain to them all about himself. And then they arrive in Emmaus, and Jesus goes inside with them, and he sits down to have a meal with these two guys, which just makes me laugh because of the timing of it all. Like if I'm like Jesus's marketing guy or PR guy or just somebody trying to help him, I'm like, "You mean right now, Jesus? Like you, God, you just came back to life. Let me remind you, you only got 40 days. You got 40 days till you're out of here for good, to rally everybody together, to get them to believe in you, to kind of launch this thing that's going to be called the church, your movement. Like you only got 40 days. Don't you have a bunch of other like really important stuff to be doing and really important people to be seeing?" But not Jesus. He goes to dinner with Cleo and his friend, who were obviously not like A-list disciples. They weren't in the starting 12. Up until this story, we didn't even know they existed. We didn't even know they were on the team. Nobody's ever been like reading the Bible or telling a story about Jesus and the disciples. Nobody's ever been like, you know the disciples, you know Peter and James and John and Cleo. Nobody's ever said that. It's never been uttered ever. But I do love that at least Cleo got mentioned. The other guy, he got no love. We don't even know his name. He's just he's Cleo's friend. But I think that's actually kind of the point, that Jesus is not just for the somebodies, he's for everybody. And that includes all the nobodies. All the people that we would go, yeah, they're not important. Yeah, they don't matter. Yeah, they get pushed to the outside. Yeah, Jesus is for all of them. He's for everyone. He's for you. He's for me. He's for your crazy in-laws. He's for your weird neighbor. He's for your annoying coworkers. He's for Republicans. He's for Democrats. He's even for Raider fans. He loves us all. And so they sit down to eat, and Jesus breaks the bread to serve them. And if that doesn't strike you as odd, it should, because he's the guest, and now for some reason he's the host. Like, come to our house and you can stay with us and eat dinner. And then the next scene, Jesus is like, I've prepared this meal for you, breaking bread and giving it to them. I don't know if you know this, but I mentioned earlier, I've been a pastor for a long time, and I don't know if you know, one of the burdens that pastors bear is that whatever environment we are in, we're the all-time prayer. And so if we're at a meal with someone, doesn't matter where we are, they're like, Pastor, you have the floor, please bless the food. As if I can make food like more holy or healthier or whatever than you if you just gave thanks. But it's a burden I carry. When I think about that, I can't imagine what things were like for Jesus, because not only was he a Jewish rabbi, but he has all these people that believe he's God. And so, it's like, oh, we'll get out of the way. And so Jesus, come to dinner, and you make us dinner. But what Jesus does in the story is exactly who God is. He will never, ever, ever force his way inside. He will never, ever, ever force his way into your life. You have to invite him. But once you do, get ready, because once he comes inside, he's going to start cleaning things up. He's going to start healing some things up. He's going to start forgiving and fixing and serving and loving and helping and feeding your soul and nourishing your heart and changing your life. And when he did, when he broke the bread, that's when they saw it. That's when it clicked. That's when they understood. That's when the beautiful, incredible, improbable, unbelievable reality came rushing over them like a flood. See, Easter is the greatest story ever told. But it doesn't matter that it's true. It doesn't matter that the resurrection is real, because it will not change your life. It will not impact anything about you or your life until you step into it. Until you open your life and invite him in. And so the question I have for you this morning is, which side of this story are you on? Are you still blinded, unable to see, or can you see it? Are you ready to open your life to him and your heart to him? See, what if it's not some big religious conversion that you need, but simply the grace of recognition that you could see Jesus for who he is, for you to see what he's done, not just for the world, but for you and for me. God will never, ever, ever guilt you into coming home to him, but he'll also never, ever, ever stop inviting you to come back. I believe that somebody has been walking with you down whatever road that you may have taken that led you here to this moment. And he may have been a stranger to you, but you're no stranger to him. Because he's sneaky. God is walking with you whether or not you recognize him or not. God is whispering your name and speaking into your soul, and it can be unnerving when the God that you don't even believe in and you're not even sure is real begins to talk to you. And he will keep sneaking up on you and keep speaking to you and keep slipping into your everyday and meeting you while you're walking, because he loves you. He'll never stop pursuing you. I have some friends 4 or 5 years ago. They came on Easter, but they thought they were coming to an Easter egg hunt, which we have one. And we did not mean to trick anybody into thinking that they were only coming to an Easter egg hunt, but they came for church and thought the egg hunt was starting right at 10:30 and realized, oh man, we got to sit through church in order to do the Easter egg hunt. And so they came in, and it was not like they were walking in like blank slates. They didn't walk in, far from God. They walked in, they sat in the back through the service, and Jesus snuck up on them and changed their life and changed their family and changed the trajectory of everything about them. I wonder where Jesus is sneaking up on you this morning. Because here's the incredible reality that when you will open your life, when you will invite Jesus to join you on your journey, you will realize that you were actually the one that was coming home. If you're a guest this morning, if somebody invited you to come today, this is what they've experienced. This is what's changed their life. And this is exactly what they're hoping that you experience in coming to church this morning. And so if you're feeling a little bit nervous, I promise you, this is not a hard sell. We're just going to make an invitation for you to have a conversation with God. One of my favorite parts of the story is when they sat at the table and Jesus broke the bread and he disappears. They see him and then he disappears. They say, surely did our hearts not burn within us? Because here's what happens when God begins to speak to you, when God begins to whisper to you. Your pulse quickens, your heart begins to burn. You start to get sweaty and nervous because you're just like, what is happening to me? I didn't think I would be this person. I didn't think I would believe this, but it feels like God is talking to me. And all he's wanting to do is you just open your life and let him love you. Would you pray with me this morning? Let's pray together.